Welcome to the Old Classic Car channel and part 3 in the series Classic British Saloon Cars of the 1950s and 1960s, again featuring 150 photos of classic cars of the 50s and 60s that I've seen at various shows over the years. Please check out the other old car videos now on this channel, including several further photo selections like this one. Okay, well, we begin part 3 of this classic British saloon car photos section with a photo of two Fords at a classic car meeting, and that's followed by an Austin A35 competing at the Prescott Hill Climb venue. VBW 850, that's a Jaguar Mk2 saloon from 1962, and it's the 3.4 litre version. Here we have a 1964 Ford Anglia 105e. This mighty machine, 950 DLW, is a 1957 Daimler, one of the Docker Daimlers bodied by Hooper, while this is a Vauxhall Victor F-Type from 1960. Here's a rare Ford, a Ford Corsair, and another of Dagenham's finest, this time a V8 Pilot. Driving by, we have a Riley 1.5 with the 1.5 litre B-Series engine and twin carburetors, and this is an early Austin A30, the AS3 type, with a smaller front grille and a small badge above it. This is a real rarity, only 901 built of the standard Vanguard Sportsman, with twin SU carburetors, the sporting version of the range, while here we have a Jaguar 420 with the squared off front end, reminiscent of the first of the XJs. The four-door Morris Minor Saloon is next. While here we've got a Standard 10. This was on display at a classic car showdown at Bicester. At an evening classic car meeting I saw this Triumph Vitesse. It's a Mark II, I think, from 1966. And at the same meeting another pair of British classics, a Mark II Mini and a Riley RM. Also at Bicester was this Ray Davies prepared Austin A35 racing car. While here is a Ford Zodiac Mark II, no bull. In yellow and white is this early Triumph Herald, probably a 948cc engine. While here we've got a Wolseley 1550 from 1958, quite a rare car now. Here's a slightly modified Morris 1000, you don't often see them on wire wheels, and a pair of classic Standard 8s, the nearest being a Super 8, neither of which at this time had the full-size opening boot lid. You had to access the luggage compartment through the back of the car, folding the seats down. And here we have a fine Bentley Mark 6 and a Ford Anglia 100e, complete with period sun visor. There's a Mark II Austin Mini Cooper with a Lotus Elan for company. And this machine is a Ford Consort Classic 4-door Saloon, Who 514. There's a classic from the BMC stable. This is an Austin A55 Cambridge Saloon, a Mark I. While this is a Sunbeam Talbot 90 rear view of a Humber Sceptre based on the Hillman Super Minx, a once popular British classic. The rear view of a Ford Cortina Mark II Savage, the V6 version. While here we've got a Morris Oxford MO with a pair of aftermarket no-tech spot lamps on the front. And this is a Wolseley Hornet. This is Dad's old Black Princess, a 1275cc car, automatic gearbox. Here's a close-up of the front of a different Morris Oxford MO, which was powered by a 4-cylinder side valve engine, and a brace of Bonds and a Keep in the foreground and a mini car in the background. This mighty machine is actually from the late 1940s, 1946, as an Invicta Black Prince, slightly before the date period for this video, but it had to be included. And here's a Ford Consul Capri. Sticking with Ford, this is a Cortina Mark II, looks like a 1600e, the executive model. While back to BMC and MB37, that's an Austin A50 Cambridge with the 1500cc B-Series engine. while the A-Series powered Morris Minor comes next from 1955. This is an MG Magnet version of the Big Farina Saloon. And this is a Daimler Majestic Major powered by the 4.5 litre V8 engine. And shining away down at Race Retro was this Hillman Imp, prepared for rallying, built in 1965. There's a front view of a Bondi Keep. Looking somewhat worse for wear is a Vauxhall PA, either a Cresta or a Velox. I think it's a Cresta, this one. While at the other end of the condition spectrum is this immaculate standard Vanguard Phase 1. An Austin Maxi, prepared for rallying back in the day. And a Triumph 2000 Mark I from 1965 with its later Mark II brother alongside. This is an Austin A55 Cambridge Mark II, circa 1959-1960 with the fins, while needing restoration is this two-door Austin A35. A Ford Cortina Lotus, the Mark II with a trio of Triumph Heralds alongside. Well, here we've got a standard Vanguard Phase 3 in a two-tone paint scheme. Another Riley RM, quality British car of the post-war years. Another 1950s favourites, the Ford Popular 100E. And the Jaguar 420G, the 4.2 litre version of the old Mark 10, which was powered by the 3.8 of course. And then the rear view of a Bondi Keep. The 5312 AW is a Shropshire registered Jaguar Mark II of 1963, powered by the 3.4 litre XK engine. And staying with Jaguar for a moment, this is 1959 3.4 Saloon. The big Austin now, the A70 Hereford, big brother to the A40 Somerset. Well, here we've got Alvis TVG 666, which is a TD21 Series 2. The rear view of a Morris Isis Saloon. Unusual perhaps being a solid colour all over rather than two-tone. And this is an Austin A40 Farina Mark II from 1965. And here we've got a Bentley Standard Steel Saloon. JVS 326, that's a 1960 Hillman Minx. An early-ish car with a wraparound rear window. And at the same event down at Bicester, I saw this Riley 1.5 monotone green colour. And sticking with twin carburettors is this MG 1100, the MG sporting version of BMC's AD016 line. And this is my old Austin Cambridge from 1959, the Mark II Cambridge with the big fins. Now we've got a 1964 Daimler 2.5 litre. The 1964 Ford Anglia 105E, which anyone who's into Harry Potter should recognise that. Then we've got a pair of Rover P4s, the different boot trims and bumper styles on the two cars. An FPN 92, this is quite a rare Daimler Consort from 1951 and based on the DB18. We've got a side view of a Jaguar Mark V 3.5 litre from 1950. And the Riley Kestrel version of the Austin and Morris 1100. Here we've got a Ford Anglia, sit-up and beg type Anglia E494A, same type as the car that I've done videos about of my own. And we've got a Ford Zephyr Mark II rally car, complete with adjustable Lucas lamp on the roof. And staying with the Mark IIs, this is a road-ready console, looking immaculate. Here's a Morris 6. If you look at the main body shell, you can see it's come from the Morris Oxford MO with a longer front end. And here's a standard 10. And there's a Vauxhall Viva Brabham GT, circa 1967. And here's a rear view of the standard Vanguard Phase 1, the Beetleback Vanguard. 145 WKP, that's a Ford Zodiac Mark III. And this is a Morris Oxford from about 1970. This is the Austin A90 Atlantic. This was Austin's idea of what the Americans might buy, but it didn't really catch on. Now we've got a standard Daimler Majestic with the, I think it's a 3.8 litre straight 6 engine, as opposed to the Majestic Major with its 4.5 V8. Now we've got a pair of Hillman Super Minxes called Bert and Hilda, it would seem. And a head-on view of a Mark II Ford Zodiac, YXY 270. And a maroon Austin A40 Farina Mark II on Ross-style wheels, possibly from a Sprigget. Here's a rear 3/4 view of a Mark II Consort 375 and a Singer Gazelle, which was the upmarket version of the Hillman Minx. There's a rear view of the Austin A60 Cambridge from 1965 with an A40 alongside of the same year, while here we have a Jaguar Mk2. TFO 783, that's a Wolseley 444, which shared its body shell with the MG Magnet. And here we've got a 1966 Ford Cortina Mark I 4-door saloon. This is my old Rover P5B saloon, early 1970s registration, but very much a 1960s car. And from the late 1950s, 1960-ish is another Mark IX Jaguar. There's a slightly sad-looking Jaguar S-Type. I wonder if it went on to be restored. And there's an immaculate Triumph Vitesse Mark II Saloon XMA 647E. Vauxhall Cresta now, of the 1950s, 6-cylinder powered. While here we've got a Vauxhall Viva of 1965, the HA Viva. This is a Singer Vogue, which was a badge-engineered Hillman Hunter or Minx. The Arrow series car from the late 60s, early 70s. And from the late 40s, 1950-ish, is a low-light Morris Minor MM. Here we've got a Sunbeam Rapier. And DSJ 836, that's a 1955 Vauxhall Velox, the 6-cylinder car. Now a side-on view of a Ford Consort Classic 2-door. And a mid-1950s Humber Hawk, another classic British saloon of the 1950s. Next, a rear view of a Vauxhall Victor FB saloon. And a wonderful Bristol 403. Competing on a historic rally is RDF 783 in Old Austin, Westminster. And here we've got a rear view of a Herald 1200 KKD 158E. And 292 XUN is a Vauxhall Wyvern, which is the 4-cylinder E-series car of the early to mid-1950s. And this is a Wolseley 1885, based on the Austin Morris 1800 range. Now FLW 797C, that's a 1965 Bentley S3 Continental. And here from 1964 is a Ford Anglia 105E. Taking part in another classic car rally is this great little Standard 10. While continuing with the classic cars of the 1950s and 60s is this Ford Prefect E93A from the late 1940s or very beginning of the 1950s. And this is a 1959 Humber Super Snipe. There's another PA Vauxhall, Velox or a Cresta. And a Sunbeam Talbot 90. There's that a Renault Dauphine alongside. We've got a Ford Zodiac Mark III. The 2 headlamps either side. Here's a Humber Scepter with an Austin Maxi for company. Here's a rear view of a barn find Austin A50 Cambridge. Oh, more of a garage find, but... And here's the Ford Zephyr Mark III. Not the Zodiac, the Zephyr just had the twin headlamps. The Zodiac had 4 headlamps. There's a gathering of post-war classic Fords in a distant barn. And a Triumph Vitesse Mark I saloon. There's another Singer Vogue, again based on the Hillman Hunter or the Minx range, the Arrow series cars of the late 1960s. And staying with Roots Group for a moment, we've got another Hillman Super Minx on aftermarket wheels. This is a side view of a circa 1950-1951 Austin A40 Devon. While here we've got a Vauxhall Velox of 1964 and an AC 2 litre. Another Humber Scepter shining in the sun at another classic car show a few years ago, and probably at the same show as an Austin A40 Somerset with a sliding steel sunroof, which most cars didn't have. A Lanchester LD10, a Briggs bodied car. This is a regular at some of the shows around here. Now we've got an Austin A40 Farina Mark 1 version. This is the Ford Prefect 107E, which was basically a 100E, but with the Anglia's overhead valve engine in it, which was a great little car. That drove really nicely. Now we've got a collection of the big BMC Farinas. While over at Alton Park we can see a Triumph Vitesse having its undercarriage inspected in the pits. 854 GML, that's a Ford Zephyr Zodiac Mark 1. While with its bonnet raised is a late 1960s, 1970 Triumph 1300 front-wheel drive. Now a 1966 Humber Super Snipe, a latish example with the squared off rear window. Another rear view, this time of a Daimler V8 250 with the 2.5 litre V8 engine. VBP 916, that's a 1956 Vauxhall Cresta, an E-Series car. And here's an Austin Cambridge Mark 1, the A55, with an Austin 7 Ruby alongside. This is a mildly modified Wolseley Hornet, mini-based of course, from 1964. And we've got an Austin 1300 on some period alley wheels, Cosmic I think. And this machine, NAS 819, that's an Armstrong Siddeley Sapphire 346, again from the 1950s. And from the late 1950s, a rear view of an Austin Cambridge A55 Mark II showing off the large fins. And this is a 1966 Hillman Minx showing the later style of rear window, which was a lot squarer compared to the earlier cars. Here's a Triumph Renown LSL 345 from 1953 and an Austin A35 two-door saloon. And finally, I think, this is a Rover P5B, a 3.5 litre saloon from about 1970. And that Rover concludes this third collection of classic British saloons of the 1950s and 1960s-ish. I hope that was of interest. If you've not seen the first two videos, please check those out, and I do have a fourth one planned. So, thanks for watching that. Please give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel if this kind of content is of interest. I've also uploaded a fair number of tinkering videos in the garage, so please have a look at those as well. So, thanks for watching. More videos very soon. Bye bye for now.